All right, let's talk about taxes. They're pretty much a guarantee in life, right? But how governments should actually go about taxing us, well, that's a giant puzzle. It's not just about collecting money, it's about figuring out the smartest way to do it without accidentally shrinking the entire economy in the process. So let's start putting some of those pieces together. Which, of course, leads to the big question for today. Is there some kind of perfect or optimal way to tax everything? Is there a hidden logic we can use to build the most efficient system possible? Well, the answer, as you're about to see, is pretty fascinating. When most of us think about a tax, we just see the obvious part. Money goes from our wallet to the government. Simple, right? But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. The real story is what's happening just below the surface. See, taxes don't just move money around. They actually change our behavior. And that change comes with a hidden cost that affects all of us. So to really understand this hidden cost, we have to shift our thinking a little bit. The real problem with taxes isn't about who pays a few extra kwacha at the counter. No, it's about something much bigger. It's how taxes change the quantity of things being bought and sold in the entire market. I mean, think about it. People don't just passively accept taxes. If the government suddenly puts a new tax on your favorite soda, what do? You might just switch to a different brand, right? And if your company and your product gets taxed, maybe you start making something else entirely. All of this reacting, this collective scrambling to avoid the tax, it pulls the market away from its sweet spot, that perfect, efficient point. And that shift, that pull away from efficiency, that is the real hidden cost of a tax. It's a loss that you won't find on any government balance sheet. It's value that just vanishes. So the question is, how do you even measure something that's not there anymore? To make this totally clear, let's grab an example from our source material. Imagine the government puts a 15-way tax on every single liter of fuel. Before the tax, everything's running smoothly with people buying 100 million liters. But then the tax hits. And just like that, the price is a little too high for some drivers, and the profit is a little too low for some sellers. The market shrinks. The total fuel sold drops from 100 million down to 90 million liters. And those missing 10 million liters, that isn't just a statistic. That represents thousands of trades, people who wanted to buy, companies that wanted to sell, that just didn't happen because the tax got in the way. Economists actually have a name for this invisible cost. It's called dead weight loss. And here's the key thing to remember. This isn't money that goes to the government. It's not a gain for anyone. It's the combined value of all those good deals that got wiped out by the tax. It's like a slice of the economic pie just vanished into thin air. Okay, so what decides how big this deadweight loss is? Why do some taxes barely make a dent, while others create this huge wave of inefficiency? The answer to that boils down to one single, all-important concept: elasticity. Now, elasticity sounds complicated, but it's just a fancy way of asking a simple question. How much do we change what we're doing when a price changes? For some things, our demand is inelastic. We'll buy them no matter what, like critical medicines. For other things, our demand is super elastic. If the price goes up even a little, we'll easily switch to something else, like choosing KFC instead of Hungry Lion. Okay, so let's see what happens when you tax an inelastic good. If you tax medicines, people don't really have any substitutes. They still need it. So even with the tax, the amount people buy barely changes. Very few trades are lost, which means the deadweight loss is tiny. That's a pretty efficient tax. But oh boy, it is a completely different story when you tax an elastic good, like one specific fast food joint. People have tons of other options. A small tax can make sales plummet, as customers just say nope and walk across the street. The result? A huge dead weight loss. That's a super inefficient tax. All right, so we know dead weight loss is the enemy, and we know it's all about elasticity. This led an economist named Frank Ramsey to have a kind of aha moment. He asked, could we actually use this knowledge to design a perfectly efficient tax system? And his answer gave us what's basically a formula for the optimal tax. So, I'm going to throw this one to you. Based on everything we just talked about, if your only goal was to cause the least amount of deadweight loss possible, what kind of stuff would you tax more heavily? The things people have to buy no matter what, or the things they can easily stop buying? And the answer is what's known as the Ramsey rule, or the inverse elasticity rule. To get the most efficient tax system, you should put higher taxes on goods with inelastic demand, the stuff people buy anyway, and lower taxes on goods with elastic demand. It follows the logic perfectly. Now, there's a really important catch. This doesn't mean we should just find the most inelastic thing out there and tax it at like 90%. Why not? Because deadweight loss gets exponentially worse the higher the tax rate goes. So the big takeaway is that it's always, always better to spread the pain. Taxing lots of different things at a low rate is way more efficient than hammering a few things with a super high tax. So there you have it, a blueprint for the most efficient tax system you can imagine. Simple, right? But what happens when this perfectly logical, efficient model crashes into the messy, complicated real world? Well, this is where it all gets very, very interesting. Let's apply this rule to just two items: breakfast cereal and caviar. Cereal is a basic necessity for millions. Its demand is super inelastic. Caviar? It's a rare luxury good. Its demand is very elastic. So the inverse elasticity rule tells us, plain as day, for maximum efficiency, you should put a high tax on cereal and a low tax on caviar. And that brings us to the question you can't possibly avoid. A tax system that puts a heavy burden on a breakfast food while going easy on an expensive luxury, it might be efficient, but is it fair? And this, right here, is the great dilemma at the very heart of tax policy. There's this fundamental trade-off between efficiency, which is all about making the total economic pie as big as possible, and equity, which is our sense of fairness about how that pie gets sliced up. As our source material puts it, any time a government tries to make a tax system more fair, it almost always makes it less efficient. And the other way around is true too. So policymakers are in this constant balancing act, having to make a conscious choice between a bigger economic pie and one that's more evenly divided. And that's really the question I want to leave you with today. When it comes to the taxes that build our societies, what do we actually value more? A bigger economic pie for everyone, or a pie that's sliced up more evenly? There is no easy answer. And that is the hidden logic of taxes.